WWE announces War Games for Survivor Series. Logan Paul versus Roman Reigns is officially set for Crown Jewel in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Malakai Black is no longer with AEW and issues a public statement. MJF is getting paid a substantial amount of money and signed a new AEW deal, but it's not a contract extension. And of course, I will be giving you guys my preview for this Wednesday's Dynamite Grand Slam, coming to us from Arthur Ashe Stadium, headlined by Jon Moxley versus Bryan Danielson for the AEW World Championship, right here on episode 1 of the WrestleHavoc Podcast. What's up, everybody? It is Flamin' Ricky DeRays, right here on the WrestleHavoc Podcast. Episode 1, I should say, of the WrestleHavoc Podcast. We got a lot of things to talk about right here on the main show. Of course, the big story is War Games is finally, yes, that's the key word right there, finally coming to the main roster, and I got a lot of other things to cover right here on the show. But before I get on with all of this craziness that is going on in the realm of professional wrestling, make sure to like and subscribe to the WrestleHavoc Podcast right here on YouTube, in which we discuss everything in and outside the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and as the frickin' referee would say, ring, ring, ring that damn bell for more notifications. Also, the WrestleHavoc Podcast is available on audio platforms. It's available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, and Google Podcasts. So if you guys want to listen to the WrestleHavoc Podcast in audio format, it is available on all of those platforms. So, in our first story of the evening, we are going to be talking about Survivor Series. Of course, Survivor Series is going to be in the TD Garden, which I believe already sold out, which is great to see. It goes to show you the Triple H effect, because once Triple H took over, all eyes, realistically, ever since Triple H took over, all eyes have been on WWE, and rightfully so, because it's new management and, changes in the air regarding the realm of World Wrestling Entertainment. But in a story on The Ringer, Triple H spoke and announced that War Games will officially be a part of this year's Survivor Series, and it will no longer be SmackDown versus Raw, which is hallelujah, in my opinion, because one of the major issues regarding that whole Raw versus SmackDown feud is because it really, one of the major issues is the fact that the feud is not there. Realistically, there's no feud at all between Raw versus SmackDown, because if you really think about it, hypothetically, they are the same show, because they're booked the same. They just have different wrestlers and they're different colors. Those are the only differences that, the shows have. Other than that, the shows are exactly the same. But Triple H spoke with The Ringer, and I quote, "We'll have a men's War Games match and a women's War Games match. The tradition of the Survivor Series has ebbed and flowed and changed slightly over time, but this will be similar to that." Levesque said, "This will not be Raw versus SmackDown. It will be much more storyline driven, and I still look at it as a traditional component to Survivor Series in there, because it's basically a large team of people competing. We just upped the ante a little bit with War Games and made it evolve." And that's the quote by Triple H. The premium live event, scheduled for Saturday, November 26th at the TD Garden in Boston, Massachusetts, will dispatch with the traditional Survivor Series format and replace it with the cage matches that were legendary in the realm of WWE's then rival, WCW, then known as Jim Crockett Promotions, the standard bearer of the NWA. From the start, Survivor Series and its signature format, an elimination tag team bout, generally pitching teams of 4 or 5 wrestlers against one another, was born of necessity. Crockett was planning to run Starrcade 87 on pay-per-view, and it would be the first use of their pay-per-view. Previous Starrcade events reached similar audience via closed-circuit television, and then the WWE supposedly wanted to derail Crockett's event by counter-programming its own pay-per-view event on the same night. Then basically resulted into the original Survivor Series that outsold Starrcade in terms of pay-per-view buys, and established itself as the second tentpole in today's 4-show rotation, headlined by WrestleMania, Royal Rumble, and SummerSlam, joining the calendar in 1988. Its format evolved from the show consistently entirely from elimination matches, which could feature multiple or sole survivors winning the day for their respective teams, to one that featured world title matches, tournaments, and even the first Elimination Chamber match in WWE history. Arguably, the two most memorable moments in Survivor Series history were not Survivor Series matches at all, but rather 1997's Montreal Screwjob, in which Bret Hart lost the world title to Shawn Michaels, and of course the Gobbledygooker, as they stated here. But that was basically the whole report. I'm not going to read the whole report right here from The Ringer, because the main story is War Games is finally coming to the Survivor Series. If you guys want to read the full report from the Ringer, the link will be in the description below. But what are my thoughts on War Games finally coming to Survivor Series? Honestly, this is the right decision to make. Let's be 100% real here, because for years now, ever since 2016, Survivor Series has been based off Raw versus SmackDown ever since they brought back the brand split back in 2016. But even before 2016, realistically, Survivor Series has not really been that important. Let's be honest with ourselves. Do you guys realistically give a shit about Survivor Series? Absolutely not. I guarantee you guys do not. I know I didn't really care about Survivor Series, and especially those last couple years since we're having Raw versus SmackDown. I thought, realistically, Raw versus SmackDown, the feud is not there, and the whole thing, the idea of brand versus brand and brand supremacy makes no sense, considering the fact that realistically the shows are booked the same and there's no real difference within the shows. That's just me. But, the reason why War Games fits so well with Survivor Series, because if you really think about it, the idea of, WCW / Crockett's War Games and Survivor Series for the WWF, those were similar, philosophies right there. It was basically team versus team. And I think with Survivor Series adding War Games now, I think, it creates more interest within Survivor Series. And I also think that, it makes the show more intriguing because we're gonna be having a War Games match, and this should have been the deal years ago. Like, Survivor Series at this point should have had War Games annually, but they didn't do that because of the fact that the previous administration, Vince McMahon, just did not want War Games at all on the main roster, considering the fact that I believe that it was not his creation, so he didn't want to do it. But the fact that we have War Games now as part of Survivor Series is the right decision to make, because this is best for business, and also it creates a lot of intriguing stories with it. Because as Triple H stated in this report on The Ringer, he stated that it's no longer going to be Raw versus SmackDown. It is going to be strictly storyline driven. So I think, War Games is definitely the best fit for that. So now we got Blood and Guts in AEW, and now we got War Games finally on the WWE main roster. But it raises the question, is NXT still going to be having War Games? My guess, I think they still will. I do not know. Now, granted, I do not watch NXT, but for the past couple of years, of course, every November, NXT always had their TakeOver War Game shows. So my guess is we're going to be having War Games in NXT, but we're going to have to wait and see in the near future. But again, War Games, Survivor Series, best for business, and it's the right decision to make, period. It just is, because the possibilities realistically are endless. We a lot of the storylines that you can have, can definitely tie in all together, and you can create a lot of intriguing moments when it comes to Survivor Series and War Games. So I'm glad that War Games is finally a part of the main roster. It's long overdue, but overall it's the right decision to make, and I'm happy about it. In our next story, we got Logan Paul versus Roman Reigns officially set for Crown Jewel. Yes, Roman Reigns and Logan Paul is officially set for Crown Jewel, and it raised a lot of questions within the community, and rightfully so it has, and I'll talk about that later on, but I am reading this from F4W Online, so the full report is going to be in the link in the description below. The undisputed WWE Universal Championship match set for Crown Jewel has been set. At the press conference held in Las Vegas, because there was a press conference held in Las Vegas this past Saturday, Nevada on Saturday, WWE confirmed that Roman Reigns will defend the undisputed Universal Championship against Logan Paul at Crown Jewel, which will take place in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia on November 5th. You can watch the press conference below. Of course, they show the press conference. Triple H opened the press conference announcing the match and calling the bout a spectacle that has never been seen before, and pushed that Paul could quote-unquote do the unthinkable. Reigns then spoke, saying that he's respected the following that Paul brought and could even be the third match on any show he headlines, but he wouldn't treat Paul like a third match on the card at Crown Jewel. Paul then responded, thanking WWE and Triple H, saying that he was going to deliver his performance that nobody has ever seen before. And he said that he found his home in the WWE and calls out Roman Reigns immediately because that is what he does, mentioning his second boxing match ever was against Floyd Mayweather. He then told Reigns that this may be his profession, but Crown Jewel is his match. Paul then said that while Reigns is the head of the table, he was the table, and that Reigns, he would acknowledge him on November 5th. After some of the questions from the reporters, Heyman attempted to close the press conference, running down Logan Paul. Paul then asked why Reigns wouldn't say anything and allowed his mouthpiece to say everything. Reigns then proceeds to go up and then shoved Paul, leading Triple H to separate the two. The two then meet face-to-face, to close out the press conference. And it was reported Friday afternoon that the press conference would be held on Saturday to confirm the main event between Paul and Reigns for Crown Jewel. On SmackDown, Paul appeared and confronted the Bloodline, teasing that he may challenge Reigns for the title. So that was the report by F4W Online. The link will be in the description below. But we got Logan Paul versus Roman Reigns set for Crown Jewel. So what are my thoughts on this whole match that's happening at Crown Jewel? There are many things to think about. From first glance, realistically, I thought this is such a stupid idea. Why the hell? And you know what? A part of me kind of thinks realistically that it is a stupid idea, considering the fact that you have Logan Paul, who is only wrestling his third match for the championship. So creatively, if you think about it, makes no sense at all. But you have to look at it from the broader perspective. Logan Paul is, the definition of one word, and he is the definition of a draw. He's proven time and time again that he is a major draw, and he will bring a lot of eyeballs and money to WWE. And at this point, that is what everybody's looking for. And of course, since this is happening at Crown Jewel, which is a Saudi Arabia show, they're trying to go back to the formula of, basically having these big, giant, intriguing matches for these Saudi Arabia shows. Because if you guys don't recall, this year they had the Elimination Chamber in Saudi Arabia, and they did have some legends wrestle on the show. Of course, they had Lita wrestle on the show as well. But of course, we had the Elimination Chamber match, which was basically the entirety of the whole pay-per-view. But they're reverting back to bringing back people or bringing big attractions for these Saudi Arabia shows. If they want to do it, they can do it. But overall, look, I understand why they did it is because they want to make a lot of money. And another reason is, the fact that Logan Paul is a big draw and he can draw a lot of eyeballs. So it makes total sense to why they do this. Now, that raises the question, will this match be good? Honestly, I genuinely think that this match will be really good. The reason why I say that is because Logan Paul, if you guys did not watch his match at SummerSlam, Logan Paul blew everybody out of the water. He literally blew everybody out of the water and did absolutely amazing in his match at SummerSlam. So honestly, I definitely expect a fantastic showing between both Roman Reigns and Logan Paul. That raises another question. Is Logan Paul going to win the WWE Championship? And the answer is really simple. No. He's not going to win the WWE Championship, but it raises another question on top of that. If Roman loses, how is he going to lose? Because we all know Logan Paul is not winning the WWE Championship. I think we can all agree that it's a flat out foolish decision to put the title on Logan Paul. It's absolutely foolish and stupid. But will there be a cash-in? We do not know, because there's been reports that Fox and USA want the titles to be split up, and I believe that the titles will eventually be split up in the near future. We just do not know how it will happen. So will that lead to maybe, Austin Theory potentially cashing in? We're going to have to wait and see. But honestly, man, genuinely, even though on paper this match sounds like shit, you have to look at it from the broader perspective, and Logan Paul realistically is that draw, and he will bring a lot of attention to WWE. So those are my thoughts on Logan Paul versus Roman Reigns, officially set for the Crown Jewel pay-per-view. All right, in our next topic, we got Malakai Black. Yes, Malakai Black is our next topic of discussion. Of course, Malakai Black is no longer with AEW, and that raised a lot of questions within the community as to why Malakai Black is not with AEW. But it's no secret that Malakai Black, especially these past couple months, realistically hasn't been used well. And I felt like the House of Black, was not what is the best word to describe it? Because I like the House of Black. I think they're a fantastic trio. But at the same time, if you really think about it, the House of Black just did not raise a lot of interest within, people watching AEW, in my eyes at least. I didn't really care a lot about what was going on when it came to the House of Black. But Malakai Black is no longer with AEW, and he actually issued a statement that he posted on Instagram. The link will also be in the description below. And I quote, "Firstly, thank you all for your messages. Know that they're being read and appreciated. With all the turmoil going on in the landscape of professional wrestling, I took the time to think of my words, but also needed to wait until conversations between mine and AEW's camp had come to the conclusion. First off, I dislike reading parts of my private conversations between myself and AEW in regards to my mental health being on the internet. These conversations were private and not meant to be shared with the public. As by now, most people realize that I'm a very private person and do not feel the need to have stuff like this out on the internet. If you have been following me longer than a cup of coffee, you're aware that I've spoken about them prior, but would be the one deciding when this finds its way to the public and not through somebody else's mouth. And as with anything through the lips of someone else, that story gets distorted. Secondly, to be in the line with the above, they also need context. I indeed asked for my release. The last 2 years of my life have been lended into a lot of setbacks. Both me and my wife have been affected by uncontrollable actions from the outside that has resulted in the loss of life, medical setbacks, career jeopardizing, the suicide of a close friend and a close family member amongst losing their life. Then experiencing an injury that I was sure was the end of my career. I spent every week going through several sessions of rehab, dry needling, and therapy just to be able to walk and compete. Now, this being the tip of the iceberg, and with the combination of promises in my professional career that were not upheld, with resulted as a combination of all of these to a complete demoralization of life and career. This decision has been in my mind for the past 6 months. It's hard to really put a finger and say this was the moment when it went all wrong, but I can tell you after many years that I have learned from a rational point of view to see when I need to hit the brakes, which is what this is. Perhaps once my mind settles into certain things and processes the last 2 years a bit better, will convey via a different platform than written out what that exacts that were happened and have a more informed conversation about them. For now, I know that I am good, and I am taking for the first time in 22 years a few months to recalibrate the last 2 decades of my life. Lastly, I have read a few narratives online in regards to my quote-unquote release, mental health, and my personal life that I can summarize swiftly. If it didn't come from me, it didn't happen. Stuff about conditional releases, stuff in my marriage, or using said mental health to leverage the other, as when I said that before as part wasn't even going to be a part of the public conversation, are false. My marriage is fine. I am fine. It is just time to make sure those things stay that way. Once again, I appreciate your support, and we will see each other again soon. All right. So very, very, it was a very good message by Malakai Black. Of course, Malakai Black currently is dealing with a lot of, mental health issues right now. And at this point, that is the main thing that should be on everybody's mind regarding Malakai Black, because I've been seeing a lot of narratives online talking about how, AEW is, to blame for this, all of that stuff. Look, is it safe to say that Malakai Black's run in AEW could have been much, much better? Absolutely. I absolutely agree 100%. But at this point, I don't think it's right now time for us to talk about that, and, time for us to sit, wish, Malakai Black well. Hopefully he'll be he'll come back to work and be successful somewhere else in the near future, because at the end of the day, his mental health matters, and that's what we all should be caring about. I don't think we should all create narratives and just talk about, he's just using AEW or WWE for leverage and all that stuff. No. Mental health is absolutely real, and a lot of people deal with that type of stuff. So realistically, I think the best decision right now is for us to wish Malakai Black well and hope for a good future for Malakai Black. But those are my thoughts on Malakai Black. The Instagram not the Instagram story, but the Instagram post by Malakai Black will be also in the link in the description below. All right. MJF is being paid more money and signed a new AEW deal, but did not sign an extension with the company. So, MJF actually had an interview with Ariel Helwani today, which I actually did not watch. I've seen clips of it, but overall, some of the things that MJF said were 100% spot on, and he's absolutely amazing at what he does. During his interview, and I'm reading this from WrestlingNews.co. Once again, the link will be in the description below. During his interview with Ariel Helwani on the MMA show, he confirmed that he got a bump in pay from Tony Khan and he did not sign a contract extension. This is confirmation of what was said after he returned at All Out. MJF added that all he cares about is money, and when the bidding war of 2024 happens, he will go to the highest bidder, whether it's AEW or WWE. Also, during the interview, MJF declined to comment on the incident between both the Elite and CM Punk, and he shut down the idea that the inmates are running the asylum. Then, when asked if he saw the fight, he said, "I do not deal with rumor and innuendo." He added that the backstage in AEW is like a team atmosphere, and sometimes people have disagreements and they move on. On whether AEW needs CM Punk, he said no comment, but his feud with Punk will go down as one of the greatest feuds of all time. So, overall thoughts on MJF. Let's be honest with the show. Look, let's be honest with ourselves. When MJF talks about the bidding war of 2024, MJF is telling the God's honest truth. Let's be 100% honest with you guys. He is telling the God's honest truth when he mentions the bidding war of 2024, because that is a very real scenario. And as MJF stated, he did not sign an extension with the company. He just signed, a new deal in which he's paid a shit ton of more money. And I genuinely believe he signed a new deal. But again, MJF, look, once 2024 comes around, it's going to be a very, very, very legitimate bidding war between both WWE and AEW. It's pure fact. The reason why I say that is because of the fact that just looking at MJF and listening to all the promos that he cuts, this guy is destined for greatness. Let's be 100% honest with ourselves. He is absolutely destined for greatness, and honestly, this guy is going to be a megastar in the next couple of years. It's just fact. He's going to be a megastar for the next couple of years. And MJF, whether he goes to WWE or stays with AEW, that remains to be seen, because we have like a year and a half left all the way up to the beginning of 2024. But this is going to be the main catch right here. Since Triple H is now, taking over WWE, for a fact, the first guy, once 2024 hits, the first guy that's going to be calling MJF is going to be Triple H. It's a flat out fact that that's going to happen. The reason why I say that is because of the fact that Triple H would probably look at a guy like MJF and be like, dude, I want this guy on my show. Triple H will go after this dude. He don't care. He will go after this dude and really want him to sign him to a lucrative deal. And also, if that happens, Tony Khan is going to have to pay him a shit ton of money, because let's be honest, MJF deserves all of the money that he gets. He just does. He deserves all the money that he gets because he's worked his ass off to get up to this point. And realistically, MJF is the man right now. He is the hottest thing in all of pro wrestling right now, and he's going to win the AEW World Championship in the near future. So MJF right now is going nowhere at this point, but once 2024 hits, honestly, we could possibly see him in the WWE. We could even possibly see him, stay in AEW. We do not know, but again, MJF right now is as hotter than ever. He just is. All right. In our last topic of discussion, of course, we are going to be talking about AEW's Grand Slam. Yes, AEW's Grand Slam is this coming Wednesday. Yes, it's this coming Wednesday, and we got five championship matches on this show, and it's going to be a absolutely barn burner and a fantastic fucking show. Let's be 100% real here, man. Grand Slam, AEW last Wednesday did a 1.1 rating. I guarantee you they're going to be topping that, and it's going to be the highest rating ever since moving to TBS. Legit. But we got 5 championship matches on this show, and I'm going to be giving you guys my preview and predictions for AEW's Dynamite Grand Slam. So here are my predictions for Grand Slam. All right. So, Grand Slam, of course, is taking place at Arthur Ashe Stadium this coming Wednesday on TBS. And, of course, we got 5 championship matches. So the first match of the evening, we got Claudio Castagnoli versus Chris Jericho for the ROH World Championship. Now, this is a very intriguing match in my opinion. The reason why I say it's a very intriguing match is because of the fact that it's Chris Jericho challenging for the fucking ROH World Championship. Now, I stated this on my SmackDown and Rampage review that there are many different scenarios that you can go to when it comes to Chris Jericho and Claudio Castagnoli. There's many different scenarios that you can go in. Of course, they're currently in the feud with the sports entertainers versus the professional wrestlers. And of course, Chris Jericho right now is a heel, and he is touting himself as not only the greatest pro wrestler of all time, but also the greatest sports entertainer of all time. Imagine if Chris Jericho actually managed to beat Claudio Castagnoli for the ROH title. Chris Jericho holding the ROH World title, on paper it sounds stupid. But if you really think about it, it can make total sense story-wise, because then you can tout Chris Jericho as like the ultimate heel because he's considering himself as the greatest sports entertainer of all time, holding that one championship that represents professional wrestling, and that is the ROH World Championship. So this match, considering the fact that it's actually happening on Dynamite instead of Rampage, says a lot. It really does says a lot, because if it happened on Rampage, I could have easily been like, oh yeah, Claudio Castagnoli is just going to win this championship. But definitely, since it's happening on Dynamite, it's going to be a big deal, and I think this match, it can go either way. My prediction is Claudio Castagnoli will retain, but don't doubt Chris Jericho, because there could be a small percentage of the fact that Chris Jericho could actually walk out of Arthur Ashe Stadium with the ROH World Championship. The All-Atlantic Championship, we got Pock versus Orange Cassidy. This is a match that is definitely intriguing to me. Of course, this is a rematch from their match that happened way back in 2020 at the Revolution pay-per-view. Of course, Pock and Orange Cassidy had a fantastic match and, created a lot of memes online. But this match, of course, is for the All-Atlantic Championship. This match is going to be a banger regardless, and I think will win this match, honestly, Pock is going to be winning this match. That's just it. He's going to be winning this match, and whether you like it or not, Pock is going to hold on with that All-Atlantic Championship for a long, and I mean a long period of time. All right. In our next match, we got a four-way for the AEW Interim Women's Championship. We got Toni Storm defending her Interim Women's Championship against Serena Deeb, Athena, and Dr. Britt Baker, DMD. It's obvious that Toni Storm is actually going to retain her title. I don't see her losing that title anytime soon, but I will state this, and I talked about this on the Dynamite review. It was very stupid for the AEW to basically book Thunder Rosa to basically take the pinfall attempt in that women's tag team match. It made absolutely no sense whatsoever because of the fact that Toni Storm just won the women's championship the week prior at the All Out pay-per-view, and now she is, taking a clean pinfall attempt to Serena Deeb. That was absolutely really stupid in my opinion, but hopefully, Toni Storm can actually regain that, confidence back, and Toni Storm is going to be winning this match regardless. We're going to be waiting up until Thunder Rosa comes back, and of course the money match will be Thunder Rosa versus Toni Storm for the Interim Women's Championship. Honestly, that is the match that everybody's excited about, but again, we do not know how long Thunder Rosa is going to be out, so we're going to have to wait and see what happens in the near future, but we got this four-way Women's Championship match. I see Toni Storm defeating Serena Deeb, Athena, and Britt Baker. All right. Another match that is intriguing absolutely everybody across the entire wrestling community is Swerve in Our Glory versus the Acclaimed. Now, you guys know what everybody thinks about this match. Of course, this match happened back at All Out in Chicago a couple of weeks ago on pay-per-view, and the Acclaimed were super over with the crowd that a lot of fans were saying that AEW should literally call an audible and immediately change the finish and have the Acclaimed walk out as the AEW World Tag Team Champions. And I absolutely stand by that statement because of how over the Acclaimed were. It was fucking awesome. All right. There is no secret that the Acclaimed should win the Tag Team Championships on this show. It will be a sin. It will be a sin if you have the Acclaimed lose. Because if you have the Acclaimed lose, you lost the trust out of everybody that is having hope for the Acclaimed. Literally, put the fucking titles on the Acclaimed. Tony Khan, I know you're not watching this show, but You better put the championships on both Max Caster and Anthony Bowens, because not only they're super over, they're fucking awesome. So the Acclaimed, of course, are going to be winning the tag team championships. Swerve and Our Glory are going to lose those titles. And, once they lose their titles, we have to talk about Swerve and Our Glory, because, of course, they're that tag team that kind of has issues, but they kind of serve them out. What if they actually split up Swerve and Our Glory after that? We're going to have to wait and see what they do, but most likely the Acclaimed are going to be winning the AEW Tag Team Championships at Arthur Ashe Stadium at Grand Slam this Wednesday. We got Jon Moxley versus Bryan Danielson. Blackpool Combat Club versus Blackpool Combat Club in the main event. This, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be the match for the ages, because this match is going to be fucking fantastic. If you guys did not, and I talked about this on my Dynamite review, if you guys haven't watched my Dynamite review, check it out. Their match at Revolution was amazing. They beat the shit out of each other in that match. And Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson, no question about it, are going to be tearing the house down at Arthur Ashe Stadium this coming Wednesday. Now, the one thing I will say about this match is, number one, this match should not, I repeat, should not open Grand Slam. It should not open Grand Slam at all, because, Tony Khan would have a tendency on having, world championship matches and opening those shows up, that being Dynamites, with championship matches. Or if you guys do not remember last year in Grand Slam, of course, everybody was hyped up about Kenny Omega versus Bryan Danielson, and they actually opened up that show. This situation is much different. This is your world championship. That match has to close the freaking show. It should not open the show. It should close the show. But who do I think will win this match? Jon Moxley or Bryan Danielson? Let's be realistic with ourselves right here. It's a win-win situation. You can literally put the titles on either one of these two men. You would have no issues whatsoever. Absolutely no issues whatsoever. No issues at all. But realistically, Jon Moxley has been the interim world champion, beating Tanahashi at Forbidden Door, then beat CM Punk in Cleveland, and he became the actual AEW World Champion, and then dropped that title to CM Punk 2 weeks later at All Out. I think it's time, let's be honest with ourselves, even though I would love for Moxley to put the champion, to win the championship, I think it's time for us to have a Bryan Danielson AEW World Championship title run. Now, I know what people are going to say. Look, Bryan Danielson, or I shouldn't say Bryan Danielson, whoever wins the world championship, whether it's Jon Moxley or Bryan Danielson, they're going to drop it to MJF regardless. They're going to drop it to MJF whether you like it or not. They will drop it to MJF, because MJF right now, as I've stated earlier on this podcast, is the hottest thing in pro wrestling, and it makes total sense because that's what they're setting MJF for. But I believe that MJF will eventually win the world championship at Full Gear, which will be taking place November 19th in Newark. So realistically, if Bryan Danielson or Jon Moxley had the championship, they would kind of have a lengthy title reign of a month and a half, which is not really that bad if you think about it. So whoever wins, again, is a win-win situation. But who do I think will win this match? Honestly, my pick has to go with Bryan Danielson. Bryan Danielson is my pick, and he will win the AEW World Championship this Wednesday at Arthur Ashe Stadium at Grand Slam. It was a year ago that Bryan Danielson faced Kenny Omega, and that match ended in a time limit draw. 1 year later, in the same venue at Arthur Ashe Stadium, Bryan Danielson walks out as the AEW World Champion. So yeah, that is my preview and predictions for AEW Dynamite's Grand Slam. It's going to be an epic event. 100% bar none. It's going to be an epic event whether you like it or not. This show is going to be absolutely fantastic, and if there's any indication of the rating that AEW did last week, these people are going to top this rating. They're going to get a huge, and I mean a huge rating for Grand Slam. Again, in the midst of all of the controversy that AEW has gone through with, CM Punk, CM Punk and the Elite, Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, all that stuff, they basically turned the situation from chicken shit into chicken salad. And these people managed to make, a lot of money and do high ratings. I mean, they've done like $1 million for like 3 straight weeks now, which is insane to think, especially for AEW, but they have, man. And you know what? Hopefully we can keep that ball rolling when it comes to AEW, but Grand Slam is going to be an epic show. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that was episode 1 of the WrestleHavoc podcast. Please like, subscribe, comment down below, push that bell for notifications, and be on the lookout for more videos right here on the WrestleHavoc podcast. Of course, if you guys want to listen to the WrestleHavoc podcast in audio format, it is available on all of these audio platforms. It's available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, and Google Podcasts. And as always, it is Flamin' Ricky DeRays, signing out.